Today I'm going to start a video on some shotgun repairs. This is another one of my amateur videos where I try to work out a way to repair an old gun based on research and common sense. Alright, now if you've got a gun like this, get an old gun and you want to sort of see, check one thing to do is go like that. Just hold it and shake it, and it should just be like a lump of timber. It should be completely solid. There should be no movement anywhere in anything. You can probably hear that. So this gun is loose. There's a couple of things are loose actually. It's loose on the face, and the fore ends are loose, and they're caused by the same thing basically. So what we need to do with this gun is we need to tighten it up. So you can see here's the hinge pin here. So we have to actually bring the old terminology for this problem, and it's a common problem in break open guns and rifles that have had a fair bit of use, is it's off its face. That's what the old British gunsmiths used to call it, off its face. So you have to put it back on face. So what that involves, the reason it's off its face, so let's just take this off for a start. You can see here, this is the pivot point of the barrels on the pin there, and that's where the wear is. So I'll actually try to explain this a bit further, because it's very important that you understand how the gun works and where the forces of firing are to know how to fix it. Right, so let's just have a bit of a look at this gun. So here's the hinge pin here, and you've got that inside on the lumps at the bottom. You've got that semicircular part that hinges on it, and then you've got the back of the breech, and this part of the gun is called the standing breech. It stands up straight like that, and it doesn't move. It's the barrels that move against it. Now, if you think about a cartridge being in there and firing, at the moment of firing before the shot leaves the barrel, there's obviously incredible pressure inside the barrel. That pressure is pushing back on the cartridge against the standing breech, and because this is all one solid piece to where the pin is, and because of the laws of motion, any force one way has to have an equal and opposite force the other way. So the force against the standing breech here is actually kind of duplicated by force pushing forwards against the pin by that semicircular part of the block. Now that's what keeps the gun from blowing up, and what allows the force to push the shot out of the end of the barrel. So with a gun that's not off its face, what should be happening is that there should be, ideally in a perfect gun, if you buy a Purdy or a Churchill or a Holland, absolutely 100% perfect fit all the way around both barrels on the standing breech. And then if you hold it up to the light, so when you hold it up to the light, there'll be no light coming through, but then there should be light coming through along the bottom, so it's actually not contacting the bottom, so therefore all the force is actually stuck against the standing breech. This gun, if you hold it up, you can sort of see that the barrels are back. They're actually touching here, and they're touching at the top, but then there's light at the bottom, because as it's got loose, the barrels are tilting back this way. So yeah, so we need to pull them back. And then I did mention before the fore end is loose. As you can imagine, the fore end here is actually located there and then located up against that. So with time, with that force and just going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, what's happened is the actual part of the pin that the notch is articulating with has worn, and the inside of the notch has worn. So now, instead of being tight against the pin here and tight against the breech here, there's actually a little bit of movement allowed, both that and also sideways. You can actually go like this, sideways movement. So in order to get this gun to be tight again, what we have to do is bring this back so it's hard against the standing breech and fit it to the breech. Now there's several ways of doing this. I'll just open the gun again. So yeah, that's not going to focus, so there we go. Sorry about the focus, the camera's being a bit difficult this morning. So you can actually see that. See how that doesn't really look round there? It's kind of a bit more like that. And that's probably part of the wear of the gun. Now, I have seen YouTube videos where they talk about mainly sort of cheap American kind of guns, just knocking out the hinge pin and then just replacing it with a new one. So that will obviously help, because if the hinge pin's worn, putting a new one of the correct diameter in will help. But unfortunately, it's only going to half bring the gun back on face, because it's not going to actually deal with the problem with the wear here. Now another way of doing it, and it's apparently widely done, is getting a very skilled welder with a TIG welder just to build this up a millimetre or so, probably not even that, maybe even half a millimetre, but just putting some metal on here, and then so that's actually, this notch will then be undersized, and then filing it approximately back to shape. There is actually a Midway, there's a Midway, a Midway USA video on how to do that. And then what's going to happen then is when you go to close the gun, it's going to kind of almost close, but it's going to kind of close to somewhere here. Keeps closing itself. That's the design of the gun, it snaps shut. It'll only go about that far, and then you have to actually fit the back of the breeches and bring it back into so that it's tight. Now that's a legitimate way of building it, and if you read, I've got a few old British gunsmithing books, and when they mention that and say, well, it's just not the done thing, it's just not the way to do it. So I mean, it is a reasonable way of doing it, but that's not what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is follow. There's a video, again, it's a Midway USA video with Jack Rowe, if you want to look at it. He's a host of a whole British gunsmith. He's got a whole heap of videos, and he actually tightens a similar gun to this by knocking the pin out, turning a new pin slightly oversized, and then reaming out. Right, now if you look at the two sides of this hinge pin, compare the size of that to the size of that one. The one on this side is smaller. So what happens with this pin is it's actually got a if you imagine where the centre of the pin is here, where the barrel hooks onto it, it's a smaller diameter to there, and then it's a bigger diameter on the other side, so you can knock it in from this direction and it'll go a certain way and come up against the shoulder. And that's the way it was originally made, and that would have been cut off, filed smooth, and then a little bit of fairly basic engraving put on there. So what we've got to do is knock it out from the small end to the big end, knock this pin out. We're going to measure it and then see what the diameter of the smaller part of the diameter is, and then we're going to just decide on a slightly bigger diameter pin. I've got a little lathe, so I'll make another pin, and then we'll have to ream this hole out so it's an interference fit, and knock the pin back, knock the new pin in, cut the ends off, file it smooth. I'm probably going to refinish this gun anyway, because I'm going to refinish the barrels, so while I'm doing browning on them I might as well just refinish the whole action as well. And then after that we'll then have to fit the because it will be just a tad oversized, a few thou oversized. It means that then hopefully the breech, the barrels won't close, and then we'll have to fit the back of the barrels here. So I've never done it before, but you know, I've looked at some YouTube videos, I've got plenty of gunsmithing books, and it doesn't seem to be anything that, it's just one of those things that takes a lot of time, a lot of patience and forethought. Alright, well I didn't try to film it because it's one of those things that would be a bit difficult, but I just went and used the padded aluminium jaws in my vise and clamped this up. I expected it to be really tight, but I just tapped it out with I got a little lineman, one of those little lineman hammers and a brass drift that I use for drifting sights and things. I just gave it back as soon as I started tapping and it came out. So they're not in that tight, because there's no sideways movement on them. So there is the pin. As I said, you can see the bigger end and the smaller end. You can see where the wear is, and in fact, I don't know if you can actually see, but I can actually feel the lower area and the shoulder. I can feel the wear in that, and that's the thing, it's probably only worn a couple of thou. So what I'm going to do is carefully measure that, and then start planning to make a replacement one. I've made the new pin on my lathe. It's the first thing I've ever actually made on my lathe that I had to, apart from just mucking around, but it's turned out pretty well. Now I'll turn it around this way so it's the same size as the other one. Now this big side on the original one was 0.396, so I've actually made this fat end of the new pin exactly the same. The thin end of the original pin was 0.357. So going from Jack Rowe's Midway USA video, he said 5 to 7 thou increase. So I've turned this one at 0.394, which is 7 thou over the original one. So now we have to ream the hole in the shotgun out a thou under that, so 0.363. Now that's not a standard reamer size, and reamers are fairly expensive, I've discovered. So what I did was I I bought a adjustable one for China for I think it was $8 or $12 or something like that with free postage. So here we are. This new reamer came from China. Only took a couple of weeks to come. So there it is. It's one of these adjustable ones. I've just never used them before, but now some of these little tools I've got from China in the past, drill bits and such, have been actually not too bad. I suppose if you're using them all the time they wouldn't be so good, but for just one or two uses it's certainly not cheaper than buying a proper one. Now the problem with this adjustable one is we have to actually get it to ream a hole exactly the right size, to 0.363, which is 1 thou over the size of the pin, the new pin. So what I did was I adjusted it to approximately what I thought. I did a couple of holes in aluminium. I drilled 9.5mm first and then reamed them out with a reamer and just kept adjusting the reamer. And now these are the last two holes I did. Just trying to work out which was the, yeah, this is the first one. So this one is pretty close, but you see the pin is pretty much a slide fit in that. So that one must be about around the 0.364. So then I just made the reamer just a little bit smaller, and as you can see, I actually tapered the edge of that pin slightly when I made it in the lathe, just to make it easier to start in the holes. So you can see that's tight fit, but that should be, I should be able to drive that into the correct size hole. Now, as far as the steel for this goes, I wasn't sure what to do. I did a bit of research and I was looking for some 4140, which is a very high tensile steel apparently that you can get here. I wasn't able to get a piece that was the right size. I got a piece that was 10mm, which was just a bit too small, or it might have been 3/8. Anyway, it was a little bit too small, and then the next size up they had locally was 7/8, which was too big. I ended up buying a high tensile bolt and 7/16 high tensile bolt, and turning it from that, and it's pretty hard steel. You can see that little groove there. I actually tried to cut it with my high speed steel cut off, and I wouldn't cut it. Just cut it a little bit, and the tool went blunt. So I had to use a carbide tools in the lathe to make it. But you know, for a first try, it seemed to work out all right. Alright, so here we go. So I've got the fat end, the bigger end of the hole on this end, and I've got the gun in a vise with a aluminium jaws, bit of just got to very gently I think probably a proper non-adjustable vise reamer would be much better, much easier. This one tends to bite. I found when I was cutting the. There we go. So I've gone through the outside part, like where the fat part goes to the thin part, where that shoulder is. I can feel it cutting. The one with this, it tends to bite. I know you're not supposed to turn reamers backwards, so they say, but when you've got to kind of, when it bites, you seem to have to wiggle it to release it from the bite in the metal, so that you can then just reduce the, oops, reduce the pressure and start again. So I've managed to knock my pin into the gun. Had a bit of trouble, even though I'd done all sorts of measurements and stuff. It still was oversized initially. It was really tight. I had to knock it in and knock it out again and polish it and knock it in again, and then in the end the fat part here, the hole's obviously not bored straight in the shotgun, so it was catching, so I had to put this back in the lathe and take a tiny bit off this. But anyway, I finally kind of got it in. So as you can see, you've got a nice new shiny hinge pin there. Now what I've done now is just check it to see how the barrels fit, and I'm actually, surprisingly enough, the gun actually almost closes, as you can see there. Like, it's just got a fraction until it closes. So I wasn't expecting that. I thought that it would be a fair bit. So that, what that indicates is this gun was so loose that I probably should have maybe gone 10th thou higher with the pin. So I still haven't actually fit the actual hook on the barrels to the pin. That's the next job. But I suspect what's going to happen is when I go to carefully fit the hooks to the barrels, the gun's then going to lock up, and I'm not going to need to file the backs of the barrels here to fit it to the breech, to the standing breech, which is a shame. It would have been nice to just practice fitting it, you know, to the breech. But saying that, I mean, I think it's going to lock up fairly tightly, which, you know, it's only a cheap gun, so that's probably all I need. It'll be quite shootable. So so my next job is to use some blacking and black this and fit it to the gun, and see if just get this so that it's a good fit to the new breech plug, and then I suspect while I'm doing this, it's just going to lock up, and it'll be all right then, and then I'll just use it as is. So we'll see how we go with that. Alright, so I've gone to do the smoking of the hook. I've put the gun together and smoked the hook, but I found that when I've gone to close the gun, it's actually now closing and locking. So yeah, I mean, obviously the hook is not going to be shaped properly to the pin. So you know, I guess it just goes to show, you know, how important experience is. This gun obviously needed a bigger. I mean, I put a 7th thou bigger hinge pin in, but it obviously needed bigger than that. It must have needed 10th thou. But saying that, if you hold it up to the light, you can see light through here, and you can't see the breech faces seem to be pretty hard against there. Now what I'll do now is I'll pull it apart again. And I'll have a look at that hook and just see where it's taken off. I obviously don't want to take any metal off it at all, because it's a bit tight, but that will probably come good with use. What I was thinking of even doing was just putting a bit of polish on the hinge pin, so that, and just work it away so that it actually polishes. But I mean, I think that's completely tight now, so it's much better than it was. So I'm sort of reasonably happy. But I'm a bit disappointed that I didn't get to do the whole you know, filing of the breech faces and doing that to get it fit properly, because I suppose the risk with this is because it hasn't been fit properly to the hook, as the hook's probably not bearing evenly on it, and it may then wear and become loose again. Anyway, let's have a look at the hook. One thing it's worth noting on this gun, here's the old hinge pin here. We put that in the hook. It's probably a bit hard for you to see, but the actual diameter of the hook, I mean, some of it's wear, but some of it I suspect is just, you know, slack when they actually made the gun, because it should be a perfect fit. The diameter of this hook here is much bigger than the diameter of the original pin, and I think that's what I probably should have checked that as soon as I took the pin out of the gun, and I would have seen that I was going to have to make the diameter of the pin at least the diameter of that hook there, if not bigger. Now, I obviously can't try the other pin now because it's in the gun, but it seems to me that it must be just a bit of a fluke that I've got the diameter of the pin, the new pin, very similar to the diameter of this, and it's locking up. I'll have another go at, I didn't get a very good, I still had a bit too much oil, so I'm going to go and blacken that again, and then we'll have another look and see what sort of where we're getting. Obviously if the pin is bigger than the diameter of this hook, we'll be getting the black worn off top and bottom only, and it won't be coming in and touching the back of the hook. So there we go. I've just blackened this, and I've put it on the gun and opened and shut it, and you can see that the bearing surface where the blacks come off is mainly in the bottom of the hook. So so I definitely don't need to be taking any metal off that. It's actually sitting. In fact, you know, again, comes back to the fact that probably I should have made a slightly bigger hinge pin. One thing I probably should have done, and it didn't actually mention it in that midway video, is probably use some drill bits or something and put them into this and work out what the kind of approximate diameter of this hook is, because that's the minimum diameter that you need to make your pin. But anyway, you learn by your mistakes in this sort of game. If I do another shotgun, there's a lot of things I'll know, and it'll be a lot easier. Another thing about this gun is that before, when the joint was loose, the fore end was really loose as well. It was just rattling around, and there was a big gap here between the fore end and the action. But now that we've tightened up that, it's pulled the whole thing back, so it's actually a little bit tight now, but it's as you can see, the fore end is completely tight. It's tied up against here. It's probably a little bit too tight, but again, I won't take any metal off or do anything else, because I think things will probably wear in a little bit when I first use it. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. But as you can see, it kind of clips on quite fine. Now, if you look at this gun now, so I've still got the pin. I haven't cut it off yet. I need to cut it off and file it to shape here. But this gun is perfect now, really. You can see that cross bolt. It's still a bit tight, but I reckon it'll wear in. I'll put a bit of oil in there. See the cross bolt? It kind of goes almost all the way through, but you can actually finish it off there. But snaps together fine. If you remember last time when you shook it, it rattled like an old whatever rattles. Now it's as tight as. If I hold this up to the light, I can't see any light between the standing breeches, and I can see light just along the bottom here. So that's perfect. So it seems like I've just by fluke I've managed to get exactly the right size hinge pin, and I've actually tightened this gun up pretty well. So now all that's left to do is cut off these pins with a hacksaw and then carefully file them. I am going to refinish this gun, so that's going to be a later video. I've finally got around to filing off the heads of the two ends of the pin. It's quite a tedious job, but had to be done very carefully. It took me about 2 hours on either side. Used a coarse file initially, coarse bastard file, and then I went to a finer mill file, and then finally to a little tiny, very fine needle file, and then some 240 grit paper wrapped around a little file. But you can see there's some engraving that they had around it, but if I run my finger over there, I can't actually even feel on either side that that there's actually the head of a pin there. So if you look at that, so now you obviously got that shiny part there, but I'm going to refinish this whole gun. That's going to be my next project. So I'll do a YouTube video about that. So I'm going to post this video for now, so stay tuned. It will probably take me a while. All of these things that I do very slowly because I also work full time. But hopefully this gun will end up being beautifully refinished. It's lovely and tight now. I'm really happy with the way it's turned out, and you can see even the lever's just slightly off to the right, like it's supposed to be. So so it's still got a little bit of wear to go in that. So anyway, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you'll watch my next one.